What's up, YouTube? How's it going? It's been a minute, hasn't it? It's been what, 2 weeks? I think it's been around 2 weeks since I've last recorded a video for you guys. Now, I posted on the channel, gave you guys updates on what happened. Now, before we get into today's video, finally recording the Manu Ginóbili video. I hope I pronounced the name right, by the way. Before we proceed with today's video, I want to quickly go over what happened and why I haven't been uploading videos. Now, like I mentioned just now, I've posted. I think I have two posts on the channel explaining why. But for those who haven't seen the post and you've been wondering, Wasabi, where's the next video? Why did you disappear on us? I didn't quit. I didn't disappear or anything. Unfortunately, last Sunday, 1st of June, I was involved in a pretty bad car accident. I was driving. Actually, I have paint opened up. I'll pretty much draw what happened, like a very basic drawing. But yeah, I was essentially driving back home, and I was at least 5 kilometers under the speed limit. It was an 80 kilometer zone. I'm driving, just listening to music, and out of nowhere, there was a car that was driving 100 kilometers. So he was driving 20 kilometers over the speed limit. He was driving so fast that I didn't even notice him until he was in my lane. So pretty much what happened, so imagine this, right? There's a petrol station right here. Now, there is a road going, so I'm going this way, pretty much, right? Now there is an island, so like just land over here. Imagine it's like grass, right? And then you have the other side, so the people coming this way. Pretty much, right? So I'm going back home, driving up the road, and there's a bridge. So I'm driving towards the bridge. This guy was driving so fast that I didn't even notice him until he was already here. So he was clearly under the influence. I don't know whether it was alcohol, drugs, could be anything, right? He drove so fast, I didn't even see him drive into the island. He literally flew into the island. So this was him, right? And I'm here. This is me, driving right there. He drove over the island, over here, right? Hit my passenger side, mostly. So the impact happened in the passenger side. My car spun this way. He drove towards the petrol station. Luckily, he didn't drive into the petrol station, so he hit the pavement. His car was in between the bushes. My car spun, but stayed on the road. The front of the car was destroyed. So now I have no car. It's been written off from how severely damaged it was, right? As soon as the car stopped, I noticed that there was smoke coming out of where the AC is, and the survival instinct plus the adrenaline kicked in. I got out of the car out of survival instinct, but also out of anger. I was so angry at the guy. I'm like, how in the hell do you lose control, drive over the land here, go into my lane, the opposite direction, and hit me, right? As I was walking towards the car, sort of the effects of the accident kicked in, pretty much, and I started losing control of my balance. Luckily, there were construction workers around in the area, and they helped me sit at the pavement. They were trying to get control over the whole situation. Also, there was an off-duty policeman. Imagine how lucky I am. So he was trying to figure out what the hell happened. He was asking me questions. And now the driver who hit me was going in and out of consciousness. So he was somehow in a worse state than I was. unless it was whatever substance he was under. Now, the policeman was asking my driver license number, trying to get my sort of explanation of what happened. Luckily, there were witnesses that saw him hit me, and it was his fault. We all agreed, obviously, it was his fault. Now, the policeman, he called the fire brigade to make sure there's no hazards, any more hazards that might cause fire. There were the ambulance came as well. More police officers came along to sort of figure out what happened, ask us questions, write the reports down for the insurance, the claims, everything. The ambulance were doing concussion tests with the flashlights and everything. At the time, I didn't have any severe, I wouldn't say severe, but any noticeable injuries besides a few scratches on my hands. You might be able to see some, like just slight scratches here. Nothing compared to how it was before, pretty much. I don't know if it's visible. It shouldn't be that visible, but I was bleeding from the forehead. Nothing too crazy, just tissue, some water, cleaned it up. They asked me if I was all right for them to take the other driver. I'm like, yeah, take him. This guy is clearly struggling more than I was. And they took him, and then second ambulance came. They took me. I had to call mom. She spoke to my dad. Crazy situation, man. And they were asking me questions in the ambulance. They're doing more checks. They checked my blood pressure, my oxygen. Everything seemed normal, no issues. There was some bruising because of the seatbelt and the airbags. Now I was admitted to the emergency. My parents saw me. I had to do CT scan, and luckily there was no internal damage, no internal bleeding. So thank God for that. What else? I had to stay the night at the hospital, and that's when I made the first post. Unfortunately, I was in the accident, and unfortunately couldn't upload the video. And when the accident happened, one of the first things I thought of was you guys. I'm like, man, now I'm in an emergency room. I can't do what I love doing. I can't record videos. I can't stream, because you guys mattered to me. But I got discharged the following day, so Monday, 5:30 p.m. I felt okay at the time. I went back home. I was eating soup, just basic stuff. I ordered some bubble tea. I was craving it. Now, around 4 a.m. Tuesday, the following day, I started to feel very nauseous. And I am like, all right, maybe it's just a bubble tea or something I've eaten at the hospital. Let me just, throw it up, and maybe I'll feel better. So I threw up, but it got worse. The nausea just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and I hit rock bottom. I reached my limit, and beyond what I could handle mentally and physically. It got to the point where I couldn't even walk out of the toilet, and I was just, I was like, all over the place, man. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. I started questioning myself, and it was a tough situation. I was in tears as well because I thought something bad was happening to me. And poor mom, I put her under too much stress. They fast forward a few hours. I had to unfortunately go back to the emergency room, which is the second post I posted. And I remember I was in the bed they put me on. I was twisting and turning and twisting and turning, and I was yelling because I just could not handle it anymore. And they were putting the IV into my veins so they can put like electrolytes and whatever else they were putting. I can't remember what they were adding, and it hurt so much because my body was so weak. And then out of nowhere, I found myself in another room. I don't remember being moved to that room. Suddenly, I started moving my mouth, and my teeth were so sensitive, and I'm wondering why are my teeth so sensitive? And I suddenly felt a lot of pain in my chest, my back, my legs were so fatigued. Pretty much my whole body was wrecked. And my mom was there, my dad was there. I was still feeling a bit nauseous, but once the electrolytes started kicking in, the nausea started to go away. And I was telling my parents and the doctor, I'm like, look, just help me with the nausea, and I will suck it up and deal with the pain. I'd rather deal with the pain than the nausea. That was horrible. Later, found out that I had a seizure, and I was biting my tongue so hard, which then explained why my teeth were so like numb, not numb. It was such a weird feeling, and it was due to concussion, lack of sleep over 3 days, dehydration, lack of nutrition, because I pretty much threw up everything in my system. So I had to stay in the hospital till the afternoon. They kept doing concussion tests, blood pressure, oxygen, all that stuff, asking me questions. Do you know where you are? Do you know which hospital? Date of birth? What month we're at? That kind of stuff. I answered all of them. I remember when they asked me what month we were in, I thought we were in April. So it took me a bit of time to remember, oh, yeah, shit, we're in June. But yeah, I mean, I literally got discharged that same day, and it was such a struggle the first 2 days after I was discharged on Tuesday. I was pretty much in bed all day. I could barely move properly. Now my chest pain is mostly gone. However, I've been in constant pain with my back since Tuesday. And we're waiting to do scans. We're just going back and forth with doctors and specialists, trying to get referrals and all that kind of stuff. And along with that, my arms, I don't have a lot of strength with my arms. I feel like there's something wrong with them. I feel a lot of tension where my bicep is, like the inner bicep. And I have a feeling that I may have dislocated my shoulder, because between Tuesday and yesterday, certain movements or positions, I felt, firstly, it was where my bicep is here, kind of felt like something moved, like a muscle moved, and it caused a lot of pain. So I had to move my arm back to the initial position, and I couldn't feel it moving back. And then Sunday, I was trying to take a shower, and while I was taking off one of my shirts, I felt as if the bone in my shoulder moved. Obviously, it caused a lot of pain. So I slowly moved the shoulder back, and I heard a pop, like that. And that caused even more pain. So now I'm wondering, have I actually dislocated my shoulder? So it's just been me dealing with the pain so far. And now, I finally have enough strength and energy to record this video for you guys. And I wanted to give you guys a proper explanation on what's been happening for me, like the car crash update and how I've been coping with everything. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been going through. I feel somewhat better, but I feel well enough to record this video for you guys. And this will also help me, the videos and the streams will help distract me from pretty much everything that's been happening and that's happened. So yeah, it's been a wild 2 weeks, but it's good to be back. Now, let's put the negativity aside. No more car crash talk. Let's get to basketball. Oklahoma City and the Pacers, huh? 1-1. Tyrese, man, that clutch in game 1. God damn. But yeah, let me know in the comments, who do you guys think is gonna win? Also, I may not be as energetic as I normally am. That's gonna take time to build up. But I'm still gonna record the videos for you guys as much as I can or as often as I can, and yeah, go from there. But today's video, Manu Ginóbili. I hope I pronounced that name right. I'm not going to be reading a lot of information about him. I'm going to let the video do all the talking, and then you guys in the comments as well. But yeah, pretty much our boy Manu Ginóbili been highly requested. Finally getting to him. So he was a guard for the San Antonio Spurs. Pretty much spent his whole career there. 2002 to 2018, 16 seasons with the Spurs. He was drafted in 1999, round 2, pick 57 from Argentina. I do want to visit Argentina one day. Now, as for his accolades, he's a two-time All-NBA third team in 2008 and 11, sixth man of the year, 2008, and in 2003, he was he got awarded the All-Rookie second team. Now, a lot of you were telling me how good this guy was when he played, and I tried looking around for videos that would do him justice. And I've seen a lot of you guys say how inaccurate some of Nonstop's videos are, and I was watching his videos on some of the OGs, not some of the OGs, pretty much all the OGs from 2 weeks ago when I recorded videos for Shaq, Kobe, MJ, I believe, and someone else. I can't remember who, but yeah. So today we're going to be checking out. Oh, I gotta subscribe to him. I completely forgot. Wait, can I not subscribe? Can I just? All right. I mean, it's not letting me just subscribe to him, but yeah. Thinking Basketball has been a highly requested channel, so finally we're gonna be watching this video. So Thinking Basketball, yeah, I'm gonna cover Manu Ginobili's career. I'm assuming his full career, maybe. But in the description, it says, how good was Manu Ginóbili? So, let's turn this one off. I've got my drink. Cheers, everyone. It's good to be back. And I cannot wait to catch up with all of you. I hope you guys enjoy this. And if you liked the video, don't forget to leave a like, hit that subscribe button. You guys know the deal. Let's get to watching.
Puts on the finishing touches. Marshall throws it down. Damon Jones fires away.
Oh, that was a beautiful goal, man.
San Antonio Spurs are NBA champions once again.
The Spurs just won their third title in 5 years. Tony Parker was named Finals MVP, joining Tim Duncan, who won it the last 2 times. And then there's Manu Ginóbili, the third wheel
Perfect. Pronounce his name right.
who came off the bench, scoring 18 points per game. But look more closely and something unbelievable happens. Back in the first quarter, the Spurs were down by 4 before Manu checked in, and he immediately made his presence felt with a few big plays on both ends of the floor. When he went back to the bench near the end of the half, San Antonio had a 7-point lead. The Spurs were then outscored by 3 points without him to start the second, but again, Manu came in and did damage, drilling a 3 and then back-cutting some poor defender into a pair of free throws, and when he left at the end of the quarter, that lead was back to 10, only for it to evaporate when he went to the bench, just so he could return in the fourth and start slicing his way through the Cleveland defense, and finally put the Spurs in front for good with this high-arcing 3. This was just one game, but what if I told you that this pattern repeated itself in every game in this series, in more than just this series, and for more than just those playoffs? That Argentina's flying man was way ahead of his time, that he was far more than one of the greatest 6 men to ever play, and at his peak, that he was a superstar hiding in plain sight.
I mean, just from that description, Manu seemed like he was a secret weapon for the Spurs.
You are watching what greatness is all about.
Where's Larry Bird in all this?
Has it blocked by Elijah? Michael Jordan saves the day.
Big man
The
MJ.
first season of Greatest Peaks was about the best of the best. But this time we're looking at trendsetters, unique archetypes, and even controversial players who make up the legends of NBA offense.
All right, I'm
LA
excited for this.
happens. And I remember Kobe Bryant saying to me when Manu came in to the game, like, Bruce, who's that white boy? I said, oh, he ain't no white boy. He Argentinian.
Ginóbili was like a shot of adrenaline, crossing over dudes and hurling himself toward the basket, changing directions like a pinball before gliding to the hoop with some crazy finish. He sort of flowed like water through small cracks in the defense, bending and slithering into tiny creases with some of the most unique and creative movements in league history. Like, he didn't wrap the ball behind his back for flair, but for function. He cuts left here, and instead of a crossover, he protects the ball by putting it behind his back.
Nice.
And here he uses it to wedge between two defenders, and notice that quick little direction change there before spinning it off the corner of the backboard like a pool shark. He had these deceptively sharp cutbacks, where his upper body barely moves, but his hips change directions, and suddenly he's by you. Most shifty ball handlers who can cut quickly plant a foot in the ground and turn their entire body. They often have very flexible ankles and get low to the floor to explode laterally. But Ginóbili had flexible hips and even knees that helped him turn. The hips are facing
Man, if I try and do that movement, I'll probably break my hips and my back.
the baseline, then suddenly the corner, and that's because his left leg turns mid-stride to redirect him, and he never really has to stop running because of this. His torso then turned after his hips, so it's harder to see that he's changing directions, and defenders can be a step slow reacting. I also think this slithered him through tight spaces where others wouldn't even dare. He's headed directly into the defender here, turns that left leg again, nearly lands on his foot, then slips the right leg through with a long stride and rolls it in. This technique gave him a different pace than most players, coming off screens and exploding to the rim. So he had a ton of force and power moving through contact to the hoop. Being left-handed helped too, because defenders weren't accustomed to his driving angles. The shot blockers used to going right here, but Manu's shifting back to the left. And this is all one-legged leaping, where he uses his speed to glide around opponents. He'd also take strange angles on his drives in the paint, moving more right to left across the face of the basket instead of assaulting it head on. And his use of English and touch helped him finish on these approaches. We actually saw this earlier against Cleveland, where he doesn't move to the front of the rim, avoids the shot blocker, and spins it in near the square.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. He's very, very aware of his surroundings, and he's very skillful to the point where he can adapt quite easily, at least from what I'm seeing. Based on his surrounding and how many defenders are around him, you know, and like he mentioned, because he's left-handed, he sort of has that small advantage. You know, they'll be coming on from the right, but then he has his own unique way of sort of sliding right through them and getting the ball in.
Where? He also threw people off with the timing and acceleration of his drives, taking these big, long steps past defenders, and notice the early gather and the power with those two big strides.
Yep.
And his pickup timing and pace messed with people. Rasheed Wallace thinks he's jumping here, but he has a second step after the gather and flies right by him. The natural progression of these moves was the legendary Euro step, planting in one direction to pick it up and go in the other.
That's smooth. That's smooth. So that's the Euro step.
And today the move is used across the world, largely defined by that quick single sidestep, but Ginóbili's had a second step after he picked up the dribble early. Back in the mid-2000s, this unorthodox footwork surprised defenders, where he charges at an opponent, plants the foot one way on the pickup, then gets two steps the other way through trap.
Let's see that again.
One way on the pickup.
Okay, so he goes in.
Then gets two steps the other way.
Boom, boom.
Through trap.
I see. So the opponents are used to one step, but he takes that extra step further, pushes right through the defenders.
Traffic. Because his lower body was so sturdy, he packed a lot of punch on these
Yeah.
drives. So he could Euro step at high speeds like a blur. Watch him lean his upper body in one direction as the legs turn the other way, and NASA should really study this dude.
Ooh, I was about to sneeze. Damn it, like it's right there.
In addition to the Euro, he could just cross people too. There's another shot blocker running the wrong way.
They're going the wrong way!
And one of his go-to moves was splitting the double team like this, where he could make a 90-degree turn and then bring the thunder. Because he's part magician, he'd do this with a behind-the-back dribble as well.
Wait,
And
wait.
again, this was
Hold on. I want to see the behind back dribble.
with a behind-the-back dribble
Man, that was smooth. I
as
guess it
well. He's
one more
part
time.
magician. He'd do this with a behind-the-back dribble as well. And again, this was functional because he protects the ball with his body as he goes by, and he could turn at an atypical point in the dribble. He doesn't have to plant hard on the outside foot, lean forward, and make space for a crossover. Instead, he just swivels his hips in between dribbles and teleports right through a defender. He also went behind the back for his step back jumper, and this might be the most insane combination of dribbling moves that I've ever seen, going Leo Messi on 3 All-Stars and finishing with the Sham God at the end. The man was dropping people with the chamois since he entered the league in 2003. This is the 4th quarter of Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals, and he went to it not once, but twice down the stretch. Ginóbili took a ton of
I mean, the fact that he went twice just shows you how good he is at executing, that play style.
free throws during his peak years in the playoffs, and his total volume of rim attempts and trips to the line is only slightly behind the leading guards and wings this century. So he was
Oh shit, Westbrook?
difficult to keep out of the paint, and he could use
Those are some new names for me. Hold on. Iverson. I think we spoke about Iverson before, right, guys? As for Wade, is this Dwayne Wade? Parker, I'm not too sure.
the paint, and he could use that paint pressure to set up his step back. Manu didn't really elevate to shoot over defenders, so he used the step back to create space on the outside. And while sometimes these were long twos, he took plenty of threes off the dribble as well. This gave him a futuristic shot profile where 3/4 of his field goal attempts were either at the rim or from behind the three-point line, similar to guards 20 years later. Damian Lillard didn't have that shot profile until 2020, and from 2005 to 2008, Manu drilled 39% of his threes.
That's crazy.
Since he was a pick and roll heavy guard, that meant teams couldn't sag under the screen or he'd make them pay. But if you chase him over the screen, he can get into the paint and make love to the hoop. And in the exact same setup, he can reuse the screen, get to that left hand, and hit a teammate right in the mitts. Or if Duncan doesn't roll, he can Euro step into space and kick it out when the extra defender is pulled over to stop that left hand, and that
Hell
leads
yeah.
to more great offense. Seattle started trapping Ginóbili in this game with a third defender shifted over to help, and that opened the backside pass. And a minute later, they're in the same coverage again.
It's crazy how, like, when you get to a certain skill level, you get to see the openings, But when you see the openings, you gotta think like that. You gotta be so quick with your reaction.
So Manu throws a fastball for a dunk this time, and he just patiently picked this defense apart with a subtle ball fake and another dime on the inside. So he was dangerous in the pick and roll, reading the defense, pulling up from 3, or finding ways to slice through defenders and score at the basket. Yet, he never averaged more than 21 points or 6 assists per game. So, why didn't he put up bigger numbers? Why did he occasionally come off the bench? And why wasn't he given a bigger role in the San Antonio offense?
Tell us.
You know, I'm trying to be Mr. Coach, and he's doing things that are, say, a little bit too mustardy for me. And I would tend to try to correct him probably a little bit too much and try to pull him in.
Manu joined the Spurs in the 2003 season after leading Argentina to a silver medal in the '02 World Cup, stunning Team USA in the process. Prior to that, he won back-to-back Italian League MVPs, but the Spurs actually drafted him before all of his international success when he was an unknown 21-year-old rookie in Italy. As a 25-year-old NBA rookie, expectations weren't very high, but on his second NBA possession, he was in perfect position to take away a layup from a Kobe Bryant pass, and there were a number of vintage Ginóbili moments throughout this game that would become the norm in the following seasons. Now, there certainly was an adjustment period, both for Ginóbili to acclimate to the NBA as a sidekick next to a dominant post player, and for Coach Greg Popovich to understand Manu's unique game. Here's how he described it during Ginóbili's retirement.
So I had to learn to stop going and say, Manu, geez, oh whiz, what? Do we need that? Why? Well, I am Manu. This is what I do.
And he grew more comfortable in his second year in 2004, but he didn't fully unleash himself until 2005 after becoming a full-time starter. Although, I wonder if that could have happened sooner, given how dominant he looked in the '04 Olympics, leading Argentina to a gold medal at 27. The ball handling, playmaking, and unique athleticism were on full display. And his development as a pick-and-roll passer was a key step in becoming a primary offensive weapon. When the big man steps up to meet his penetration, he could blend the drive into a great roll pass. Or if that defender left the screener, he could look at the roller to open up a pass to the wing. He could do it the other way too, looking...
And that's what I meant by when you reach a certain skill level, you're able to sort of analyze the surroundings, the defenders, the opponents, sort of see the openings, and then quickly react. You know? And that's what Manu is.
To the corner to throw off.
Along with his ball handling as well and his skill level.
The big man and squeeze in a layup pass. And I love how decisive he is with some of these quick dishes to the roller, where he attacks right as the screen arrives and then reads the defense quickly, often manipulating defenders with his head movement before whipping one off the dribble.
Exactly.
This time he gets downhill off the screen and hits this defender with the ball fake and then passes. Duncan was able to corral that one. Although sometimes the passes were a little too ambitious for Timmy's hands, and other times Manu was trying to hit a home run and they weren't on the same page. He could be a little overzealous with some of his deliveries on some of these big ideas, or as Tony Parker put it,
because when Manu is two pass, you have the legend pass that everybody will talk about, one unbelievable pass, and the stands to the fans pass.
I don't think he was actually that aggressive on some of these reads, though. If anything, he could have a few blind spots when operating from up top, maybe because he wasn't tall enough to see over bodies or find the right angle. But when he did see it, he threw some serious fastballs from out there, including what's probably the fastest pass ever in 2012 against the Lakers. That speed really...
Hold on, we gotta rewatch that. That wasn't a pass, that was a gunshot. That wasn't a gunshot, actually, that was a rocket launcher.
Some serious fastballs from out there, including what's probably the fastest pass ever in 2012 against the Lakers. That speed really helped on his kickouts, where he could spray it out to shooters after attacking, and here it comes all the way back to him to finish the job. And this time he gets downhill into the paint and goes to the one-handed bullet to the corner shooter. He also had some really slick dimes in transition, anticipating this tiny opening before Ben Wallace happens. And I love that he faked this one to no one to move this defender out of the way for a dunk. But
That was beautiful.
I do think that pick and roll was a perfect setup for his scoring and playmaking skills, because he could read the coverage and exploit it, crossing back into space, and here it's a Euro step, or he can spray it to a shooter. If the coverage is too soft, he'll pop a three off the dribble, and if teams successfully forced him left into the big man, he could use his sorcery to stress the defense anyway. As he developed those pick and roll reads, his scoring and playmaking role expanded, with his offensive load peaking in 2008 just behind the league's heaviest lifters.
Damn. So you have LeBron, assuming Dwayne. Not too sure who Paul is.
This coincided with an increased role for Tony Parker, while Tim Duncan was
Tony Parker is a new one for me,
gradually
I think. My memory is like all over the place at the moment.
featured less in the offense over the course of the decade. So Ginóbili was a co-pilot out there, but could he have been more? Should he have been more? Maybe his lack of a mid-range game prevented him from being a grade A superstar during that era. He wasn't someone who could rise up and fire over defenders and hit a difficult shot on demand. But I actually think that was a minor blessing, because instead of forcing inefficient mid-rangers, he would often have space to shoot, but instinctively look for something better and more efficient. On a weak offensive team, forcing a 15-footer might be ideal, but on a good team, they can just reset into something much harder to guard, and Parker kicks it back to Manu for 3 free throws. Ginóbili took, by far, the fewest mid-range shots of the big three, and that helped him reach efficiency heights that Duncan and Parker never touched. And per possession, he looked like the better scorer for basically his entire prime. Manu would have put up bigger numbers, but he was willing to wait for screening actions to unfold like this, then default to a Duncan post-up while he looked for cracks on the weak side, and Timmy misses him for a short turnaround instead. A minute later, he doesn't force anything in transition, but instead of resetting into a pick and roll, Duncan wants to post again. Manu clears to the other side, and so Tony Parker's left with a less efficient long two. I wouldn't call Duncan post-ups bad offensive possessions for the Spurs. He was a fairly effective scorer and could set up teammates. But in general, it's harder for post players to create really good offense without elite passing and scoring. And Duncan had plenty of bumpy possessions down there in his late 20s and early 30s, while Manu was at his peak. According to Synergy tracking data, from 2005 to 2008, Ginóbili pick and rolls were worth about 8 additional points every 100 playoff possessions, but the Spurs went to a Duncan post-up nearly twice as often.
Okay.
The offense was also better when Ginóbili played without Duncan than when Duncan played without Ginóbili. So it's hard for me to view all these Duncan post-ups as an optimal approach once Manu emerged. When we looked at their overall offensive load, Ginóbili passed Duncan after a few years. But look at what happens when the big three shares the floor together. Duncan is still ahead of Ginóbili for most of his prime, with Parker doing the most when all three are out there together. When only one of them is out there alone, Duncan occasionally ramps up the volume, but it's Ginóbili who does some serious heavy lifting, averaging 28 points.
That is actually crazy.
Points per 75 while creating like a superstar wing. So despite looking like the best scorer and playmaker on the team, Manu took on the smallest role when the big three played together. But without the benefit of 2020 hindsight, just how valuable was he playing this more complementary role next to 2 other stars?
the way the team was set up, we all needed each other. And without Manu, there were no championships.
No Ginóbili discussion is complete without addressing his.
I mean, when you see the Spurs play and coach, also I will eventually do a video on their coach. It's the definition of teamwork makes the dream work. You know what I mean?
His playing time. Manu peaked at about 36 to 37 minutes in key playoff series, and during his prime played just 33 minutes a night in the postseason. This was during an era when the best players usually logged 40-plus minutes in big series, so even as a starter, Gino played less than most great players, and I've always wondered why. One idea is that Coach Pop staggered Parker and Ginóbili to always have a star ball handler out there, although that has minor benefits in the playoffs when everyone plays so many minutes anyway. Another possible reason was Manu's chaotic rogue improvisation that sometimes drove Pop mad. But the most interesting explanation to me has always been about Ginóbili's intense high rate.
You know, those goals where it just hits the basket and it's like this close to making it in, they're such a tease. Like, they hurt, man.
Motor. He's described himself as having only one gear back then, and that was especially true on defense, because unlike most star wings, he didn't conserve energy on that end and was incredibly active, always looking to make a big play, while also willing to switch and bang against much bigger opponents. It's outside of the scope of this series, but I find Manu's defense incredibly impressive. He had really good awareness of threats in the paint, often rotating early. He fought through screens and chased opponents around like he was a defensive specialist, and he had a knack for making big defensive plays in big games. He also has the reputation of a gambler, and he certainly did gamble at times, but Manu wasn't constantly compromising his team structure by taking unnecessary
And that's what I like. That's one of the things I like.
risks, and a lot of his gambits were calculated and paid off.
Like, it's alright to take risks and gamble certain things, but there's a fine line between that and then letting it affect, you know, the team's play, you know, how their play style, and essentially getting the win. You know what I mean?
If he had played enough minutes to qualify, he would have finished in the top 5 in steal rate every year for the first 5 years of his career. And I think this defense is a key reason the Spurs always look so good with him on the floor. From 2005 to 2007, San Antonio outscored opponents by a whopping 13 points per 100 with Manu in the game, nearly 11 points better than when he sat on the bench. In the same time frame, the Spurs were plus 12 with Duncan on the court, and they saw a 13-point drop-off when he went to the bench. So, per possession, they look like co-captains of the ship.
Goku and Vegeta. I'm trying to think of like a dynamic duo, Batman and Robin. You know, like you get the two captains. You know, you put 2 and 2 together and you get magic. I don't know why I just referenced Goku and Vegeta, but yeah, my mind's all over the place. First thing that came to mind.
Maybe Manu couldn't play more because of his style, in the same way that pace and space stars today play less because of the increased demands on their body. Ginóbili hustled his way into his share of injuries, and there should be books written about his toughness. This is from a postseason game he played with a broken arm, crashing to the floor, then just a few seconds later, flying in to steal an offensive rebound and create another shot for a teammate. He once ruptured a testicle and somehow walked off without crying like a newborn, though I suppose that's nothing for a man who swats bats out of the air. Anyway,
Swats bats out of the air.
the point here is that he burned bright all over the court, and that might have optimized his overall value while capping his minutes. Even on offense, despite running possessions through Duncan and Parker, Manu was still active away from the ball. They go with the Parker-Duncan pick and roll here. Phoenix defends it well, and now Ginobili's reading the play, ready to dart into an opening and make something happen out of nowhere. He was a dangerous cutter because he spotted little cracks to slice into, and at 6'6" in shoes, he was big enough to finish in the lane. But where he really excelled was attacking closeouts on the catch like this, where a teammate moves Manu's defender just a touch, and he instantly goes and finds something better.
Yep.
This is the concept of 0.5, acting within half a second of receiving the ball to strain defenses. And unless Manu was waiting for a screen or a set play to unfold, he was quick to act with the raw.
And the more I watch this video and he explains, the more, I guess you can say I become more confident in how I analyze games now. Because when I said things like, when you reach Manu's skill level and how he analyzes his surroundings, defenders, how he acts on instinct, so I'm like, all right, so now I'm understanding his play style more.
Relocating to a soft spot here, which was the straw that broke the defense's back. The Spurs set up a Duncan post-up on this one. Detroit fronts him, which means a backside defender needs to slide over, and Ginóbili exploits even a mini closeout just off that ball reversal. This style of play fits so well next to other offensive talent because it capitalizes on the advantages they create, serving as an offensive lubricant that takes good shots and finds even better ones. So his off-ball game works next to various archetypes because he was a good catch-and-shoot weapon, he was dangerous running into handoffs like this, or adjusting a route like that and flaring into the corner for an open triple, and when the ball hit him on the move, he was quick to pass as well. We know that Ginóbili and Duncan had similar footprints when they were on versus off the court in the regular season, but in those playoffs, we finally see some separation.
Now let's have a look.
The Spurs outscored opponents by 8 points per 100 with Duncan on the court and Ginóbili on the bench, and they were outscored by 3 points per 100 when Manu played without Timmy. That's the first major piece of evidence we've seen that suggests Ginóbili was more of a sidekick, and it's completely,
I guess, hence the Batman and Robin reference.
Wrong. It's actually Manu's minutes that the Spurs dominated and Duncan's units who were outscored without Ginóbili.
I spoke too soon.
Yes, that's right. The Spurs won 2 titles and made 3 conference
more or less the same
finals by crushing teams with Ginóbili on the court and then struggled mightily when he went to the bench. Remember, these are small samples, and Duncan played 6 more minutes per game. So his impact couldn't be as targeted, but this same pattern holds from 2004 to 2011, where San Antonio was better in Ginobili's playoff minutes in every postseason other than 2010. Manu also looks like the better player in our box score model in more than half of those series, and along with the regular season signals, that gives him a pretty good argument as the most valuable Spur during his prime years. After
beautiful shot.
All, Duncan played through nagging injuries during the middle of the 2000s, yet San Antonio peaked during those seasons when Ginóbili fully actualized. Personally, I'm skeptical that he could have played 40 minutes a night and carried a franchise, but on a well-built team, he was an amazing two-way player who provided some monumental impact throughout his career. So, despite coming off the bench, and despite his reduced minutes, I think there's a strong case that Manu Ginóbili was San Antonio's other superstar. To support this channel, check out patreon.com/thinkingbasketball. We have a ton of additional content, including a lot of the historical stats that contributed to researching this video. We also have episodes of the won both in 2005. Let me know what you think. Hope you.
Damn. Well, this was a great video. And, after watching this, I can clearly see why Manu was and still is a favorite, and why you guys have been recommending him pretty much constantly. There was this one viewer, I can't remember his name. I hope you're still around. You probably know who you are if you've watched till the end. He's been trying to get me to react to Manu for I don't know how many weeks now. And I was planning to, 2 weeks ago, but the accident happened and everything, so I had to push it back. But now I understand you, man. I know why. This guy was incredible. And, I remember when I was looking up videos to watch for Manu, there's not a lot of content out there for him, which is kind of weird. And just by not even like halfway while I was watching the video, I'm thinking to myself, man, this guy deserves more love and attention. And I'm glad that I finally got to react to him. And now hopefully, if this video does well, it brings more eyes to Manu. Especially, I don't know how many of you guys watching are new to the sport as well. So this would be a great video for you guys as well. And I'm sure the fans, Spurs fans and Manu fans out there, you'll appreciate this video. Now, of course, this won't be the one and only video on him. There'll be highlights and more videos down the line. It goes for all the legends, all the current newer players. You guys know how it's gonna go down. But yeah, guys, I wanted to record today's video to update you on the car crash incident and to finally react to Manu and slowly get back to uploading these videos for you. Now, I don't know how often I'll be recording, but I'll try and record these daily. Maybe not every day, but it'll still be daily, And then once I start recovering more, I'll start recording more videos. I can be more energetic and, more entertaining to watch. But as long as I have the energy to do it, I'll keep recording the videos for you guys. And if you guys enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and any suggestions, recommendations, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, the Discord link is in the bio. Feel free to join the community. I will be streaming on Twitch every now and then as well. So if you guys want to be part of the streams, I'll leave the link there. And of course, I'll leave the link for this video in my bio, But yeah, guys, Manu, man, this guy was amazing. His passes, his ball handling, everything was spot on. Maybe not the passing. Some passes were a bit questionable. Sometimes you gotta risk it for the biscuit, you know what I mean? But yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And until the next one, take care, stay safe, keep on grinding. I'll see you guys soon. Much love. Bye.